Good morning, class. Today we are going to be moving into metric units of measurement, and right here on our reference sheet, that's what we're going to be dealing with today. It doesn't give you everything that you need, but it definitely does help give you the conversions that can help us with converting. So metric's going to be really a lot simpler because it's all based on base 10. So one is 10 times as much, or the other one is 10 times less than the other one. So one of the charts I want to share with you, I like to use to help myself remember and see where they are located on a chart. So our base here is going to be our meter. That's going to be whether it's meters, whether it's liters, whether it's grams. All metric has a base that's set in the middle, so you can see which ones are larger and which ones are smaller. You have two units of measurement that we don't need to know in fourth grade between base and then this one up top here, the largest one we're going to be dealing with is a kilometer. Kilo meaning 1,000. Kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters because it is 3 spots away from that meter. Here's spot 1, here's spot 2, here's spot 3. Since it's 3 spots away and we're dealing with base 10, it's got to be worth 1,000 meters. That's going to be our largest unit of measure. And then as we get smaller from our base, we have one that we don't really need to know right underneath meter. It's called a decimeter, but we don't need to know decimeters. But after a decimeter comes a centimeter. Centi meaning 1/100th of a meter. So this is equal to 1/100th of a meter. There are 100 centimeters in a meter. If you take out a meter stick and you show a meter stick, there's going to be 100 of those centimeters in that meter. And then even smaller than a centimeter is a millimeter. Millimeter, and you guessed it, it's 10 times less than the centi, which means it's 1,000th of a meter. So the relationship between these two is very important though, because we need to know that there's going to be 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. There's going to be 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. Let me draw this a little bit larger for you so you can see. Since they're only 1 spot away from each other on the (10 millimeters equal to 1 centimeter. They are 1 spot away from each other on that chart. So centi has to be 10 times as much as milli. Deci is going to be 10 times as much as centi, but we don't need to know that. And then base, our meter, is going to be 100 times as much as the centimeter, right? Because there's 100 centimeters in a meter, and it's only 2 jumps away from the base. So hopefully these conversions are going to be helping you out, and this chart should starting to become familiar. We don't need to know these blanks here because they're not important for us in fourth grade, but there are root words and values there. I just don't want to share them to confuse you. So these are the only 4 that we're going to really be focusing on, and the relationship between all of them, between the meter, kilometer, centimeters, and millimeters. So looking at this chart, I'm going to go ahead and try to move it on down so that we can have room to work over here. Perfect. All right. Ceiling is 3 meters high. We have to take 3 meters and we have to compare it to 315 centimeters. We need to know the relationship between meters and centimeters. I know here's meters, here's centimeters. I know that there's 100 centimeters in a meter. So if I'm going from my larger unit horse to my smaller unit fly, I need to multiply. Horse to fly, multiply. What am I multiplying 3 by? I need to multiply 3 times 100 because that's how many centimeters are in a meter. And we have 300 centimeters. 3 meters is equal to 300 centimeters, so that we can see 315 centimeters is greater than 300 centimeters, or 3 meters. How much larger? Well, we would just need to take 315 and take it away by 300, and we're left with 15. It's only 15 centimeters higher in the hall than in the classroom. It's where the reference sheet's really going to help us out, or this chart. So I'm going to leave this chart up here for the next one because it's going to really be helpful. Bring this down a little bit just so we have some work to show. Kilometer right here, kilo right here. Okay, so 1,000 kilometers equal to 100 meters. 1,000 of these is equal to 100 of these. I don't really know how that's possible since there are 1,000 kilometers. There's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. And if we have 100 meters, that's going to be 1,000 times more, and 1,000 is not 1,000 times more than 100. If this said 1,000 kilometers is equal to 1 meter, that would make sense. But 1,000 kilometers is not equal to 100 meters. 11 meters being equal to 110 centimeters. Well, the relationship between centimeters and meters is that there's 100 centimeters in a meter. Centi meaning 100, there's 100 centimeters in a meter. If I multiply 11 times 100, I do not get 110, I get 1,110. So that would have to be how many centimeters? 1,110 centimeters is equal to 11 meters, not 110 centimeters. "17 centimeters is equal to 170 millimeters." So here's where this comes into play. The relationship between centi and milli. They're only one spot away on our chart, so that must have to be 10 times as much as. Centi is 10 times as much as a milli. So 17 centimeters, if we multiply it by 10, because we're going from a larger to a smaller unit of measure, 17 times 10 is equal to 170. That one's going to make sense. Relationship between meters and millimeters. Here's my meter. My millimeters is 3 times away. 10, 100, 1,000, since it's base 10. 1,000 times less, which means you're going to have 1,000 more than what you have because it's 1,000th of. You're going to have more millimeters than you are meters because it's a smaller value. You have more within that larger value. 5 meters is going to be equal to 5,000 millimeters because 5 times 1,000, that's the relationship. 5 times 1,000 is equal to 5,000, not 500. So that one can't make sense. And since it's a select all problem, we know that this one's going to make sense, but let's just make sure that we didn't make a mistake anywhere. 5 kilometers, we're going to need to multiply 5 times 1,000 because kilo means 1,000. 5 times 1,000 is equal to 5,000. Meters makes sense. It's 1, 2, 3 steps away in your chart. So kilometers, 5 kilometers equal to 5,000 meters. I'd like you to practice making this chart. It's going to really help you out seeing which ones are 10 and 100 times as more or 100 times less. Um, hopefully this helps. See you soon.